I'd like you all to think of a glass of cold water with ice in it. Can you hear the ice melting? No, you can't. But we can clearly see it melting. We can see as it slowly becomes one with the water and fills just a bit more, just a bit higher, just a bit hotter, or in some cases, just a tremendous change. We'll imagine this glass to be the Earth. Over prolonged periods of time, the atmospheric temperature warms the water, therefore slowly melting the ice inside the glass. But because of global warming, this process is becoming faster and faster. This is what's happening to the icebergs in our oceans. Now, if you look around, I'm sure you all would be aware that you are in a school auditorium, listening to people talk about what's important to them, what's important to thrive, survive even. In my case, I'm in year 9. I'm 13, so for me, that would be 13 years of history, 13 years of talking, of blinking, of breathing, of surviving, but also the 13 years of letting the undeniable effects of global warming rip our future in front of our eyes. And we see this. We have news, articles, media, posts. In fact, raise your hand if you guys have social media. That's almost all of you. I'm sure in your lifetime you've either read or shared at least one article claiming that global warming is increasing, sea levels are rising, or, in some cases, the end is near. Those aren't claims. They're facts, statements, really. And I was going to tell you about the impacts of global warming and how invertedly this affects us. But let's be honest. We know that. We know our icebergs are melting, that our world is becoming hotter, too hot to imagine. We know heat waves are becoming all too frequent and that our Earth is suffering far too much. And I know you all have heard the same speech over and over again. Global warming, climate change, and how would that even affect us? We live in the desert, don't we? I think we're all starting to forget that we share the same Earth. I was born in Canada, a beautiful country that's cold practically any time of year. My fondest memories are those where I would play in the snow, make tiny snow angels, and try and fail to help my parents shovel ice off the driveway. We try to visit Canada almost every year when we can, but honestly, it feels like a completely different place, much more changed than what I used to remember. One of the biggest reasons being that, well, Canada isn't even getting much snow. That's right, Canada, known for their winters, around 19 days less, actually, of winter weather. Soon we might not even have much of a winter. In fact, cities around the world, including Canada, have lost weeks' worth of winter ski, skate, and snow days, and have instead been replaced by dozens of days of winter rain, melt, and mud. And those changes aren't random. Now, in the screen behind me, you'll see pictures that my mom took in 2015 of the snow in Canada. And, well, now it's quite the opposite. In fact, there's barely any snow. And why? Because of extreme weather events and climate change. And those are only some of the many, many changes. And how does this link to icebergs? When icebergs break off from glaciers and melt, they're not just adding more water to the ocean. They're altering the delicate balance of the Earth's climate. Particularly in the Arctic and Antarctic, these ice giants have been melting at alarming rates. And they won't stop melting, actually, because of the temperatures of the sea. The sea levels have risen 8 inches since the 1880s. 8 whole inches. The huge iceberg that sunk the Titanic, it melted only 2 years after it was created. Why? Because of the temperatures of the sea. And those are only some of the many, many changes. Another effect is the rising global temperatures. As the world warms, the ice melts faster, and the consequences become more frantic, more extreme. To add to the pile of factors, we have the albedo effect, which, if you didn't know, is a dangerous cycle of melting, which exposes dark ocean waters, which absorbs heat, and therefore leads to more melting. And if I'm being honest, all these factors alone are enough to drown our planet, to stop life from ever existing. Why? Because we did not act. Instead, we talked about the past in our history classes, about World War I and famous people of our past. And yes, the past is important, but so is the future, the one thing we really, really need as of here, as of right now. It's the one thing that actually matters. And it's almost sad that you have to hear this from a 13-year-old girl. You know, our UAE is extremely hot, isn't it? I mean, especially during the summers, it can hit highs of 48 degrees. It once hit a high of 52 degrees. That's more than half the boiling point, and the ice in our glasses, it melts faster. Now, if I were to ask you to tell me the difference between 48 and 51 degrees, what would you say? That it's just 3 degrees? Or that it just increases? That 3 degrees increase, that causes wildfires. It's the difference between liquid and gas. It melts, even evaporates our icebergs. And they're ours, not yours or mine, but ours, because they're ours to protect, ours to keep. And our lives depend on those pieces of ice. They really do. Here in the UAE, since we're mainly made from sand, this isn't much of an issue. But icebergs are, in a way, the deserts of the north. They're necessary for keeping the planet cool, and without them, we might not have a future to shape. Have you realized that the heat here is early? It's almost like summer arrives earlier each year. Oh wait, it does. Extreme temperatures are arriving sooner, lasting longer, and pushing the limits of our infrastructure, national health system, and nation's resources. And these patterns aren't random. They signal a harsh climate reality that we can no longer treat as distant. And the ice will keep melting until it pools at our feet like the blood of those we let down. And yet, after all this, after all I've said, is there even a way to fix our future? Honestly, no, it's not magic. We can try to fix a few of the mistakes that us humans have stained our Earth with, but the amount of damage we've caused, it's unthinkable. And if you don't care for the planet in the very, very least, just think about your children, their lives, their futures. Just think. As Greta Thunberg once said, people would usually start talking about hope around now, but I'm sorry, it does not work. And she's right, because the amount of damage we've caused to our icebergs, let alone our Earth, words cannot describe. And we can try and hope and believe in this magical fairy tale, like the ones we've been told as children, about happy endings and true love, but between you and me, we both know it's fake. Still, trying will not kill us. If we try to reduce some carbon emissions, shift to renewable sources, and maybe invest in sustainable practices along the way, perhaps we can fix or at least reduce a few of the mistakes that we've caused. But it won't be by much. If you wanted to do something simple out of the goodness of your heart, just think, you could simply volunteer, pick up a piece of trash, or take part in beach cleanups. But we need to act fast because every piece of ice that disappears brings us closer to a world that's harder to live in, harder for our future generations to live in. Our childhood memories might cease to exist if the places we created them in are gone. And we can't have a future without a world to host it. And maybe a glass with melting ice will be the least of our problems. Thank you.